Okay, so there's this guy, Eric. New patient. Kind of a big shot in finance or something. I cleaned his teeth, and yeah, he's cute. Really cute. Great smile, obviously. Flashed it and made some joke about how flossing's a pain. Standard stuff. Whatever. Then he looked at me, like really looked, and something clicked for me. It's been ages since a guy looked at me like that. He came back a few weeks later. Some lame excuse about a sensitive tooth. This time it wasn't just the smile. We talked, and it was easy. Flirty. Even if I tried to keep it professional. Mark's nice, but God, we always talk about the same boring stuff. Bills, the dog, whatever. Eric was different. Asked about my day, seemed interested in me beyond what kind of toothpaste I use. I couldn't get him out of my head. Daydreamed about him while cleaning some poor old lady's teeth. Found myself comparing him to Mark the whole drive home, and Mark came up short, the same way he always does. Not that Mark's a bad guy, he just settled. I felt settled too, until now. Eric made another appointment, special request for the last of the day so I'd be alone. I knew what he was doing. And, to be totally honest, a part of me wanted him to. There's excitement in that, right? A little danger, a way to shake off the routine. So, we stayed late. I did the whole, checking for stains thing, stood closer than I had to. He mentioned grabbing drinks, asked if I was up for it. Professionalism went out the window. Of course, I said yes. Figured why not, it's not like Mark would ever know. One drink turned into 3. Talked about everything. My boring marriage, his work stresses, felt good getting it out with someone who actually seemed interested. Maybe Mark used to listen like that? I couldn't remember. It was late when we left. Dark parking lot, him walking me to my car, there was a moment. A long moment. Then that stupid voice in my head saying, "What the hell, one out." I don't even remember who kissed who first. The thing about telling someone your secrets, it makes things feel real. Eric got it. Understood why Mark drove me nuts with his predictable schedule, his dumb hobbies. Eric asked questions, told me I deserved more, not just some boring suburban life. It felt good, someone finally making me feel like I wasn't crazy. We couldn't just have drinks at the same bar though. That was asking to get caught. Lunch became our thing. Little hole-in-the-wall places where nobody would recognize us. It was like playing hooky. I told my coworkers I had some weird dentist appointment, and there I was sneaking out with him. The lying started feeling normal, almost fun. The excitement was wearing off a little though. Lunch dates weren't enough. After one particularly ranty session about Mark, Eric gave me this look. Slow, like he was cornering me. Then he joked about finding somewhere more private to talk. His place was out of the question, too risky. But I knew exactly what he meant. Next thing I know, I'm booking a room. Some generic chain motel way off the highway. I gave myself a pep talk in the parking lot. Just checking it out, you can still walk away. Yeah, right. The moment I stepped through the door, that was it. We kissed as soon as I shut it behind me. Not like that first time, all fumbling in the dark. This was desperate, hungry, like we'd been waiting months for it. Turns out we were. He didn't even bother pretending to look at floss samples. I didn't care. Clothes came off fast, and everything else blurred together. The whole sneaking around thing? Suddenly it was totally, completely worth it. The hotel room was a mess. Clothes everywhere, sheets tangled, the cheap minibar raided. Usually, that'd bug me, but this time it felt like proof of something wild and reckless I'd done. Eric sprawled on the bed, grinning like an idiot. I did too, probably. The kind of smile you can't wipe off even if you want to. We did it again before he left. even better the second time. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a fling, this was something else. I don't even like that word, affair. Makes it sound classy when it just felt plain dirty, but also exhilarating, which was the scary part. Driving home, I felt high and squirmy all at once. Replayed every touch, every word in my head. But, in the background, this little voice started whispering. What have you done? Shut it down fast, had to, didn't have a choice. Mark was already home when I got in, watching some dumb show, gave me a quick kiss like always. My skin crawled. I couldn't look him in the eyes, couldn't even stand to be near him after being with Eric. Part of me kept thinking, does he know? Then immediately, will he ever know? Nights turned into torture. Lying there beside him, pretending to sleep, smelling the same aftershave I'd spent the afternoon inhaling on Eric. I imagined Eric's scent, his hands, and the guilt would twist up my stomach so tight I thought I might vomit. When Mark would try to touch me, I'd flinch away. Started inventing excuses to stay late, claiming I'd forgot a patient chart or had a sudden migraine. He asked if something was wrong, looking at me with that concerned way he has. That made it even worse. I lied, said it was stress, a toothache, anything to shut down the conversation. The irony was killing me. Every lie made the pit in my stomach a little bigger, like it was eating me from the inside out. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart stopped. I jumped at the doorbell, even if it was just the mailman. I lived with this awful certainty that it was only a matter of time before Mark found out. It was hanging over me, this invisible countdown to when my whole world would explode. Eric didn't seem to get it. He kept texting stupid things like, miss you, and cheesy heart emojis. I told him to cut it out, to stick to the secret email we'd set up, but he'd get sloppy. One afternoon, when I was getting gas, my phone lit up with, can't wait to see you, gorgeous. I panicked, fumbled to delete it, almost dropped the damn thing in the gas tank. Got home. Heart still thudding, but Mark seemed normal. That was the worst part, he acted like nothing was wrong. His smile, his stupid jokes, it all made me want to scream. Why couldn't he just yell at me, accuse me? The waiting was killing me. Then it almost happened. I left my phone on the counter. Mark picked it up, probably just checking the time. But then he paused, frowned a little, like he noticed something out of place. My world froze. He was milliseconds away from swiping right and seeing the whole sick mess. I swear I don't know what I did. Snatched the phone out of his hands, yelled some BS about it being my private patient chat, didn't even make sense. He stared at me, confused. Maybe a tiny bit suspicious. But he let it go. After that, the fear turned into something else. Anger. Like, how dare Mark just be his boring, trusting self while I was falling apart over here. If he'd only pay attention, he'd know. Then I wouldn't have to feel so damned guilty all the time. It was twisted, but it was the only way I could justify it. He was the problem, not me. I started being mean. Little digs about his weight, his receding hairline, anything to try to provoke some kind of reaction from him. But he never fought back, just looked hurt. And somehow that just made me hate him more. The more I hated myself, the more I blamed Mark. The idea just kind of popped into my head. What if we didn't have to sneak around anymore? What if we could make it okay? The word just kept echoing for me, open. Maybe that would work. I figured it for a whole week. Practiced my most casual voice, tried to sound like I was bringing up switching phone plans, not blowing up our lives. When I finally said it, it still felt like a bomb went off. Hey, so, I've been thinking. Maybe this whole monogamy thing isn't for us anymore. Maybe, I dunno, an open relationship would be better. I blurted out, hating myself for not just spitting it out. I was sleeping with someone else. But I was too much of a coward for that. Mark just froze. blinked at me over his pizza slice like he didn't understand any of the words coming out of my mouth. He stammered something about it being out of the blue. Then his voice went all small. Is this one of those middle-aged crisis things people talk about? Are you going to dye your hair purple and suddenly start backpacking or something? He thought it was a joke. Or a phase. It stung. I was hurting him, and he thought I was just being weird. But here's the sick part. I played on that. Talked about feeling stifled, needing excitement, how it was totally normal for couples to experiment. I used all the half-baked therapy crap I picked up cleaning Rich Lita's teeth. He listened with that same lost look on his face. Then, the most messed up thing happened. He agreed. Said if it was what I needed, if it would make me stay, he'd try it. He actually said, try it, like we were sampling a new brand of cereal. I could see he hated the idea, but he loved me more. I hated him and myself all at the same moment. And that's when the guilt vanished. I wasn't the bad guy anymore. I was just being honest, and Mark couldn't handle it. It wasn't even a real lie anymore technically. I had his permission to be with Eric now. That twisted little logic made it all okay. At least, that's what I told myself. Getting away was easier now. Well, telling the lies got easier. Work conferences, helping out an old friend who lived out of town, Mark never questioned it. It was like all that mistrust he'd been hiding just evaporated after that open relationship chat. Sometimes I wished he'd fought me harder, then I wouldn't feel so damn bad. But Eric was a whole different kind of problem. Now that I was allowed to be with him, it wasn't as fun anymore. He started getting obsessed. Texting all the time. Wanting to do couple-wise stuff like meeting my friends, no way in hell. And he kept saying these big declarations about how this was it. I was his soulmate, destined to be together. It was gross, not romantic. The guy was all about big gestures too. Showing up at my office with flowers for no reason, cheesy surprise gifts. My coworkers side-eyed me like I was going crazy. Eric wanted the whole fantasy, ditching Mark, big romantic getaway, the total Hallmark movie plot. I'd never wanted that, just a little escape valve from my boring life. Now he was suffocating me. Turns out escaping a predictable husband is one thing. Escaping a crazy, clingy boyfriend is a whole other headache. I started snapping at him. Told him to back off, said he was misreading the whole thing. We had our first real fight one night at that same crummy hotel. He called me a tease, I called him pathetic, and the fantasy of him being anything more than what he was, a distraction, shattered for good. He got that cold look in his eye that I'd started realizing was his true self. I was an idiot for ever thinking he was some kind of glamorous escape. And worse. I still had to go home to Mark afterward, Mark who'd been kind enough, stupid enough, to trust me. Talk about feeling trapped. The thing about chaos, it gets exhausting. Fights with Eric started becoming a regular thing, the sneaking around felt pointless, and the guilt was a constant weight pressing down on me. Then, in the middle of all that, the craziest thing happened. I missed Mark. Not in some big romantic way, but I missed his boring routine. His dumb predictable jokes. The way he'd snore softly next to me while I lay awake feeling like the worst person on the planet. I made up my mind. I had to end things with Eric. Figured he'd get mad, but after a bit of yelling, he'd get over it, go find some other bored housewife to obsess over. The plan was simple. Meet him at our usual lunchtime hole in the wall, break things off quick and clean. Didn't go that way. The second I started talking about it being a mistake, about how this wasn't supposed to get so serious, he flipped. Eyes went cold, the same look he had that night we fought. He threatened a whole lot of things I don't even remember now, but they involved ruining me and Mark both. Started ranting about how I led him on, how I was just a user after all. I stormed out, he followed me to the parking lot, shouting things, other people staring. I just kept walking, heart pounding. That was it, my breaking point. I couldn't live with that level of crazy anymore. I drove straight home, walked inside, and found Mark sitting on the sofa, looking shell-shocked. I didn't even try to make up some excuse, I just blurted it all out. The affair, the lies, everything. I begged him to forgive me, babbling about how I didn't deserve it. I knew that now, pathetic. He didn't say a word at first, just stared at me, and there was something behind his eyes I'd never seen before. Cold, distant, not yelling, not tears, just blankness. It scared me more than any of Eric's threats. Finally, he spoke, his voice quiet like he was measuring every word. You want my forgiveness? You don't even deserve my anger. I'm just empty. Something inside me snapped in that moment. I'd ruined him just as much as I'd ruined myself. The next few days were a blur. Mark barely spoke to me, it was like living with a ghost. He'd go through the motions of work, meals, but there was nothing behind his eyes. That scared me way more than yelling. I tried apologizing again, explaining, pathetic grumbling, nothing. The silence was deafening. Then he vanished for a whole afternoon, came back with that same empty look, but something beneath it now, determination? I didn't get what was happening until the next morning. A knock at the door, a man in a suit handing me an envelope. Legal papers. The word, divorce, hit me like a truck. I flipped through the documents, saw words like, adultery, evidence, my stomach churning. My little fling wasn't so little anymore. Mark never raised his voice, never even swore, but he destroyed me in the most clinical way possible. I tried talking to him, pleading that we could work it out, but he didn't budge. Just pointed to a paragraph in those damn papers and said, you lost that option a long time ago. And the kicker? Turns out the paranoid freak in me was right all along. Mark confessed that he'd been suspicious for months. Hired a private investigator, the whole 9 yards. All my sneaking around, my clever lies, just a joke to him. He'd played me, let me think I was getting away with it the whole time. Then he did the one thing I didn't expect. Drove over to Eric's fancy condo and handed him a similar envelope. I imagined Eric flipping out, threats, the whole scene, but no. Mark said he told him one simple thing, sue me, and I'll bankrupt you with this evidence. The guy backed down, terrified, turned out he was all talk. The divorce was brutal. Mark took me for everything. I deserved it, but still, watching your whole life get taken apart methodically, that's a special kind of hell. That's when I finally realized this wasn't just some consequence. This was my punishment. One I'd brought entirely on myself. Life became a slow-motion nightmare after that. My debit card stopped working one day at the grocery store. When I called Mark, yeah, I still had the nerve to call him, his voice was ice cold. Your spending privileges have been terminated, he said it just like that, like a line from some lawyer movie. Panic set in. Rent was due, bills piling up, and I had a few $100 to my name. Those divorce papers, they came like a death sentence. I hadn't even understood half the stuff in them until some overworked public defender explained it, alimony? Forget it. Savings? Split mostly in his favor. I fought, I yelled. It was pointless. Mark's lawyer was a shark, I was outmatched. People found out, of course. Small town, what do you expect? It started with the whispers in the grocery store, the side eyes at my job. Word reached my boss, and just like that, I was let go. Something about how my personal issues reflected badly on the practice. Humiliating. But who was I going to sue? Myself? Eric was no help. He vanished after Mark threatened him. Turns out the big brave guy was only brave when it was a woman he could manipulate. Newsflash. I wasn't the only bored housewife he'd targeted. Some gossip blog even ran a story, used a fake name for me, thank God. But everyone knew who it was, the dentist's wife who blew it all up. Packing up the house was the lowest point. Every box felt like a piece of my old life I was destroying. Mark had already moved into some fancy new condo. Seeing our things divided up, sold on Craigslist for pennies. I broke down more than once. There was no choice but to leave. Took what little I got from the divorce, found a crummy apartment in a city 2 hours away. No job prospects, no friends, nothing. It was a fresh start, like I'd wanted, but the about least glamorous fresh start imaginable. At night, the loneliness was crushing. That's when I started to really obsess over what I'd lost. Not Eric, not the stupid exciting affair. I missed the boring dinners with Mark, our dumb routine. The feeling that someone in the world actually gave a damn about me. Turns out, blowing up your life doesn't just hurt you, it hurts the good people too. I'd learned that lesson the hard way, and damn, would I ever stop paying for it? Turns out, small-town gossip travels fast to even the crappiest new apartment in a nearby city. I found out Mark was doing just fine. Got the swanky condo, a promotion at work, the whole 9 yards. Some busybody cousin even mentioned that he was seeing someone new. A lovely woman. That one hurt. It shouldn't have, but it did. Meanwhile, I was scraping by. Waitressing of all things, me, cleaning up spilled margaritas and dealing with creepy dudes hitting on me half my age. The tips were lousy, the hours were worse, and my feet ached all the time. But bills have a way of making you swallow your pride real quick. The worst part was seeing those happy couples out enjoying a normal life, brunch dates, laughing together, walking dogs in the park. Every smile aimed at someone else was a kick in the gut. The thought of ever having that again seemed impossible. I pictured it sometimes, maybe me and Mark having kids of our own, that whole picket fence fantasy. Now it was just that, a hollow, stupid fantasy. No amount of wishing could undo what I'd done. No apology in the world would make Mark want me back. Every night, that same thought ate at me. I did this to myself. No one to blame but me. Sometimes it would get so bad I'd just sit on my tiny balcony and cry, too tired to even care if the neighbors saw. Self-loathing. It turns into a whole different beast after a while. It seeped into everything. Sleeping was hard. Eating felt pointless. I started calling in sick to the already crap job because I just couldn't face the world some days. I even prayed a few times, pathetic as that was. Not for forgiveness exactly, that sounded too hopeful. Just for some way to make the relentless misery stop. Obviously, no one was listening. This new life. This wasn't rock bottom, it was some kind of endless hole I kept sinking into. Every time I thought it couldn't get worse, it did. But I guess that's the thing about consequences. They ain't fast, and they ain't kind. They just linger. These reminders that, yeah, you really screwed up, and boy, you're gonna keep on paying. The buzz of the conference hall was electric, a hive of professionals all keen on weaving their way through the labyrinth of potential deals, insights, and connections. Yet, amidst this professional chaos, my world tilted on its axis the moment I met Alex. His smile was the first to catch me, genuine and warm, unlike the practiced grins that filled the room. It was supposed to be a simple exchange, a swapping of business cards and perhaps a brief discussion on market trends. But the spark between us was immediate, undeniable, and completely unexpected. I think we can learn a lot from each other, Alex said, his voice confident yet inviting. It was the kind of line you'd expect at these events, but from him, it felt different. My response, a mix of professional courtesy and personal curiosity, led to the exchange of our numbers. It felt harmless at the time, a simple professional gesture, but the moment I saved his number, I felt a line had been crossed. The first message he sent later that day wasn't about work, it was personal, a comment on the speech I'd given, laced with a compliment that made my heart race. It was wrong, but I couldn't help but feel thrilled by the attention. Coffee meetings followed under the guise of professional collaboration. Yet, with each encounter, work became merely a backdrop to the growing personal connection between us. The thrill of the secret made each meeting more intoxicating. Lying to Mike about working late felt like stepping into a shadowy realm I never knew existed. Sitting across from Alex in that quiet bar, discussing dreams, fears, and everything in between, I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. The emotional affair deepened with every hidden text, every covert meeting. I was meticulous in covering my tracks, deleting messages and saving Alex's number under a female coworker's name. The thrill of the secret, the adrenaline rush of the deceit, it was addictive. Then came the work trip, a legitimate excuse to spend time together outside the confines of the city. The boundaries we had been towing so carefully until then were finally crossed with a single kiss. It was a moment of weakness, of surrender to the building tension. It felt so wrong, yet in his arms, everything seemed thrillingly right. But with the thrill came the inevitable guilt in the close calls. Mike found a hotel receipt, a tangible piece of evidence from our trip. My heart raced as I scrambled for an excuse, settling on the lie that it was for a team-building exercise. He seemed to accept it, but the look in his eyes, a mix of doubt and disappointment, haunted me. Each step into this affair pulled me further from the life I had with Mike, each lie a brick in the wall I was building between us. The fear of getting caught was always lurking in the background, a constant reminder of the double life I was leading. But the allure of Alex, the intensity of our connection, made it impossible to stop. I was caught in the thrill of the affair, blind to the consequences, until Mike's suspicions became too real to ignore. His hurt eyes, the betrayal in his voice when he confronted me with the receipt, was a wake-up call. But by then, it was too late. The affair had begun, and there was no turning back. The sunlight barely crept through the blinds of the rented apartment as Alex and I laughed over a shared secret joke, the kind that had become our ritual in these stolen moments. Each meeting in this hidden sanctuary intensified the thrill of our affair, casting a shadow over the reality of our actions. The secrecy of the apartment, chosen for its anonymity, wrapped around us like a cloak, making every encounter feel like an escape from the world outside. But with every secret meeting, the risk of being discovered loomed larger. That risk became nearly palpable the day a friend of Mike's spotted us together. My heart stopped as Alex and I walked out of a restaurant, straight into the unsuspecting gaze of Mike's friend, John. The casual smile on John's face didn't fool me, the surprise in his eyes spoke volumes. I scrambled for an explanation, my voice too bright as I introduced Alex as a coworker and quickly spun a tale of a work-related discussion. John's hesitant nod and a promise not to mention it to Mike did little to ease the knot in my stomach. Later that week, Alex's gift of aid to the affair. It was beautiful, far too opulent for just a friend, and accepting it felt like crossing yet another line. I hid it at the back of a drawer, a secret treasure that I dared only admire in solitude. The close call came when Mike, searching for a misplaced document, nearly stumbled upon my hidden keepsake. My heart raced as I diverted his attention with a hurried phone call, the sound of my pulse loud in my ears. As doubts about our actions began to gnaw at me, the excitement of being with Alex blinded me to the consequences. We planned a weekend getaway, ostensibly for a work conference, a lie smoothly delivered to Mike with a fabricated itinerary and feigned regret for the time apart. The thrill of planning something so bold with Alex was intoxicating, pushing aside the guilt that tried to surface. The facade began to crack upon our return when a colleague, someone I'd always considered just another fixture in the office landscape, approached me with a questioning glance. "Saw you and Alex at the coast this weekend. Big project, huh?" Their tone was light, but the implication wasn't lost on me. Panic flared briefly as I fabricated a story about team dynamics and the need for personal bonding outside the office. The colleague's skeptical look lingered, but they dropped the subject, leaving me to wonder how thin the ice was beneath my feet. With each close call, each lie and secret rendezvous, the thrill of the affair was marred by the increasing burden of deceit. The balance between two worlds, one with Mike and the other with Alex, became a tightrope walk. Each step forward with Alex felt like a step away from Mike, from the life we had built together. The thrill of secrecy, once exhilarating, now felt like a chain around my neck, a constant reminder of the risk I was taking. The doubt and guilt that crept in during quiet moments began to overshadow the excitement, a foreboding sense that this could not end well. Yet, the pull of the affair was too strong, the connection with Alex too intoxicating to resist, propelling me further down a path I knew was fraught with consequences. The dim glow of the streetlights outside our rented apartment cast long shadows across the room as Alex and I talked deep into the night. With each secret rendezvous, the reality of my life with Mike seemed to fade further into the background, replaced by the vivid immediacy of my moments with Alex. It was during one of these nights, lying awake beside Alex, that the thought struck me with terrifying clarity. I was envisioning a life with him, a future far removed from the one I had committed to with my husband. The realization should have jolted me back to my senses, but instead, it was like sinking deeper into quicksand, the forbidden thoughts pulling me under. The affair was no longer just an escape, it had become a parallel reality, one in which I was increasingly losing myself. It wasn't until I missed our anniversary, a date that had been etched in my heart for years, that the weight of my choices began to press down on me. Mike's face, a mix of hurt and confusion when I muttered some half-baked excuse about being overwhelmed at work, was a picture I couldn't erase from my mind. The guilt was suffocating, yet the thrill of the affair was like a drug, numbing the remorse, keeping me tethered to this double life. In a moment of weakness, I confided in my closest friend, whispering the sordid details of the affair, pleading with her to keep my secret. The relief of confession was short-lived, replaced by a gnawing fear of discovery. Mike's intuitive gaze became harder to meet, his casual questions about my day felt loaded with unspoken accusations. Our home, once a sanctuary of love and comfort, had become a stage for a performance I no longer had the heart to keep up. Mike's suspicions grew like a shadow between us. I noticed him looking at phone records one evening, his brow furrowed in concentration. My heart raced as I realized he had stumbled upon the frequent calls to a number that wouldn't match any of my stories. The walls were closing in, and in a desperate bid for control, I rehearsed lies, crafting stories to cover tracks that were too deeply imprinted to erase. The confrontation I had been dreading came unexpectedly. One evening, Mike quietly approached me, holding the necklace Alex had given me, a tangible piece of evidence I had carelessly thought hidden. His voice was steady, but the hurt was unmistakable. Where did this come from? Faced with the undeniable proof of my betrayal, I stumbled through a lie, claiming it was a gift from a female friend. The lie was thin, almost transparent, and we both knew it. The tension in the air was palpable, a silent storm that threatened to sweep away the last remnants of our marriage. Mike's eyes searched mine, looking for the woman he married, but all he found was a stranger. The gulf between us had never felt wider, and in that moment, the full magnitude of my actions crashed into me. The life I had with Mike, the trust we had built, was crumbling under the weight of my choices. The realization was a bitter pill, a truth I had been running from, now staring me in the face, demanding to be acknowledged. The morning sun barely peeped through the curtains as I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Mike. The thrill of the day ahead with Alex sent a jolt of excitement through me, mingled with a pang of guilt that I pushed to the back of my mind. Today was not just another secret rendezvous, it was a trial, a day to live the life I had been fantasizing about, away from the shadows. I dressed in silence, each movement deliberate, as if preparing for a journey far longer than just a day. As I closed the door behind me, leaving behind the life I had built with Mike, the weight of my actions settled in, heavy but overshadowed by the anticipation of the day ahead. Alex and I had planned this day with meticulous care, a brief escape from the reality that tethered us. Yet, as I drove away, I couldn't shake off the feeling of stepping over an invisible line from which there could be no return. The day unfolded in a blur of laughter and shared secrets, a glimpse into the life that could be. But in the midst of it all, a call from a coworker pierced the bubble we had created around us. Mike stopped by your office today, looking for you. I might have accidentally mentioned your day off with Alex, she said, her voice a mix of confusion and concern. My heart stopped. The walls of our carefully constructed sanctuary crumbled around me, the reality of my actions crashing down with relentless force. I knew what awaited me at home, the confrontation was inevitable. The drive back felt like moving towards a precipice, each mile bringing me closer to the edge. The moment I saw Mike, the weight of my betrayal etched into his face, I knew that the facade had crumbled. He confronted me with undeniable evidence, the phone records, the coworker's slip. The world I had tried so desperately to keep separate collided, and I could no longer deny the truth. Breaking down, I confessed to the affair, the words tearing through the last thread of trust between us. Mike's reaction was not one of anger, but of deep sadness and disappointment. "I had my suspicions," he said, his voice breaking, "but I hoped I was wrong." The hurt in his eyes was a reflection of the betrayal he felt, a mirror to the guilt that consumed me. The realization of what I had lost, the life we had built together, hit me with staggering force. The excitement of the affair, once a blinding light, now faded into the stark light of reality. In the aftermath, I made the decision to be with Alex, leaving behind the remnants of my marriage. Moving out of the home I shared with Mike, I stepped into a new life, one that I had convinced myself was worth the sacrifices. But as the days turned into weeks, the daily realities of life with Alex began to surface. The excitement that had once fueled our affair gave way to the mundane challenges of shared life, revealing conflicting personalities and priorities that had been masked by the thrill of secrecy. Living with Alex, I began to see the illusion of the life I had envisioned, a stark contrast to the complexities of our reality. The dreams that had seemed so vivid during our stolen moments faded, leaving behind the truth of our incompatibility. The life I had left behind with Mike, once seen through a lens of longing for something more, now appeared in a starkly different light, a reminder of what I had sacrificed in pursuit of a mirage. The morning I received the divorce papers from Mike marked the end of a chapter one had never imagined closing. The reality of my actions, the weight of the decisions that had led to this moment, settled over me like a dense fog. There was no anger in Mike's message, just a finality that spoke volumes of the hurt and betrayal he had endured. The swift proceedings that followed felt surreal, each signature erasing the years we had spent building a life together. The aftermath of the divorce was like waking up to a world I no longer recognize. Friends and family, once the bedrock of my support system, were now divided. Whispers of my actions echoed in the silence of those who chose to distance themselves, their disappointment a mirror to my own self-loathing. In the eyes of some, I had become a cautionary tale, a subject of hushed conversations and pitted glances. Living with Alex, away from the life I had known, exposed the frailty of our foundation. The novelty that once made our relationship feel like an escape now revealed its cracks under the weight of daily life. Arguments became our new routine, the initial passion giving way to resentment and unmet expectations. Alex's commitment, once unwavering, began to waver, and I found myself clinging to the remnants of what we had, afraid to confront the reality of our situation. The financial implications of the divorce settlement further strained my already precarious situation. Adjusting to a single income was challenging enough without the added burden of the financial commitments Alex and I had made together. Each bill, each unexpected expense, was a reminder of the stability I had sacrificed in pursuit of a mirage. As the months passed, the depth of my loss became painfully clear. I missed not just Mike, but the companionship, the shared history, and the mutual support that had once defined our marriage. The realization that I had traded a life built on love and trust for a fleeting fantasy was a bitter pill to swallow. Hearing through mutual friends that Mike was seeing someone else struck a chord I hadn't expected. Jealousy and regret gnawed at me, the news of his moving on serving as a stark reminder of what I had lost. The life we had shared, the future we had envisioned together, was now a chapter closed, his narrative diverging from mine in a direction I could no longer influence. The final straw came in the form of a bitter argument with Alex, a culmination of months of tension and unspoken grievances. The break was inevitable, a harsh yet necessary end to a relationship that had started in deceit and ended in disillusionment. Left alone to face the consequences of my choices, I was forced to confront the harsh truth. In seeking happiness elsewhere, I had dismantled the very foundation of my life. Now, standing amidst the ruins of my decisions, I realized the journey ahead was mine to navigate alone. The path to redemption, to rebuilding the trust one had shattered and the relationships I had neglected, was uncertain. Yet, in the depths of my solitude, I understood that the first step toward healing was accepting responsibility for the choices that had led me here. The road to forgiveness, both from those I had hurt and from myself, promised to be long and fraught with challenges. But it was a journey I was now ready to embark on, armed with the lessons learned from a past I could not change but was determined to atone for. The silence of the apartment amplifies my thoughts, a stark contrast to the life I once knew. Living alone, each day blends into the next, filled with reflection and a heavy sense of regret. The affair that once seemed like an escape now appears as a series of reckless decisions that led to my downfall. The thrilling moments with Alex, once bright and intoxicating, now cast long shadows over my reality, each one a reminder of what I've lost. In a moment of sheer desperation, I find myself dialing Mike's number, the familiar digits now feeling foreign under my fingertips. The phone rings, each tone echoing my hope for forgiveness, for a second chance at the life I recklessly threw away. When Mike answers, his voice is kind, a painful reminder of the man I fell in love with, the man I betrayed. I stumble through my apology, my plea for reconciliation, but his response, though gentle, is firm. "I've moved on," he says, and with those words, the last thread of hope dissolves into the cold air. The finality in his voice marks the end of a chapter, the closing of a door I can never reopen. Adjusting to this new normal is a daily struggle. The life I lead now is a direct consequence of my actions, marked by a profound sense of loss and regret. Friends and family, once pillars of support, are now divided, some offering tentative support while others keep their distance, a constant reminder of the cost of my betrayal. My story, once filled with love and promise, has become a cautionary tale, a stark warning of the devastation that lies in the wake of infidelity. The process of starting over is daunting. Each day presents a new challenge, an opportunity to rebuild from the ruins of my past. I focus on personal growth, on understanding the depth of my decisions, and the impact they've had not just on my life, but on those I love. The journey is filled with introspection, a painful yet necessary path to self-discovery. Learning to forgive myself is perhaps the hardest part of all. The guilt and self-blame are constant companions, whispering reminders of my failings. Yet, in the midst of this struggle, I find moments of clarity, glimpses of understanding and acceptance. Forgiving myself doesn't mean forgetting my actions or absolving myself of responsibility, but it does mean acknowledging my humanity, my capacity for error, and my potential for change. As I begin to form new relationships, both platonic and romantic, the lessons of my past are never far from my mind. Building trust and transparency becomes the foundation of each new connection, a testament to the person I strive to become. These relationships, built on the ashes of my past, are fragile yet filled with promise, each one a step towards a future defined not by my mistakes, but by my willingness to learn from them. The road ahead is uncertain, filled with challenges and opportunities for growth. Yet, in this uncertainty lies a chance for redemption, for building a life marked not by the shadows of the past, but by the light of understanding, forgiveness, and the courage to move forward. The echo of my past decisions reverberates through the silent moments of my day, a constant reminder of the tumultuous path I've walked. The affair, its discovery, and the painful aftermath have left indelible marks on my life, shaping the person I've become. Each day, I confront the legacy of my choices, facing the consequences with a resolve born from necessity and a desire for redemption. In the wake of turmoil, I find myself at the cusp of new beginnings. The process is slow, often painstaking, but marked by a quiet determination to redefine my life on my own terms. Happiness, once a fleeting concept, begins to take root in the simplest of moments, in the warmth of the sun on my face, in the laughter shared with friends, in the solitude that no longer feels like loneliness. It's in these moments that I realize the journey forward is not just about moving away from my past, but actively building a future where I can thrive. The lessons learned from my journey are harsh but invaluable. Honesty, once sacrificed at the altar of fleeting desires, now forms the cornerstone of my existence. The value of commitment, deeply tarnished by my actions, now shines as a guidepost for my relationships. Betrayal, with its bitter aftertaste, serves as a constant reminder of the pain that lies in deceit's wake. These lessons, hard-earned and deeply felt, inform every decision I make, every relationship I nurture. Finding peace amidst the chaos of my past mistakes becomes a daily endeavor. It's a peace that comes not from external validation, but from an internal reckoning, a deep, abiding acceptance of my past and a commitment to live with integrity and self-awareness. This peace, once elusive, now anchors me, offering solace in the knowledge that while I cannot change the past, I have the power to shape my future. Venturing into a new relationship, I carry the of my past with a newfound grace. This time, openness and honesty are not just ideals but the very foundation upon which we build. The scars of my past serve not as a burden but as a testament to my growth, a reminder of the journey I've undertaken to arrive at this place of readiness to love and be loved, with all the vulnerability and strength that entails. In this journey, I discover the importance of self-love, not as a cliché, but as a vital component of my healing. Understanding that true happiness begins within, I learn to forgive myself, to embrace my imperfections, and to celebrate my strengths. This self-love becomes my compass, guiding me through moments of doubt and bolstering me in times of strength. Giving back to the community emerges as a path to making amends, not just with those I've hurt, but with myself. Volunteering becomes a way to connect, to offer parts of myself in service to others, finding purpose and fulfillment in the act of giving. It's in these moments of selflessness that I find a deeper sense of belonging and a clearer vision of the person I aspire to be. My story, marked by moments of despair and triumph, is not unique, but it is mine. It's a continuous journey of growth, learning, and striving to be a better person each day. With each step forward, I embrace the complexities of my humanity, recognizing that while the past may shape us, it does not define us. The journey continues, an ongoing testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of forgiveness, love, and the relentless pursuit of purpose. The air was thick with the scent of grilled burgers and the sound of laughter as Michael and I celebrated our 5th anniversary in the backyard, surrounded by those who mattered most. It was one of those perfect moments, where everything just seems to click into place, and you find yourself thinking, yeah, this is what happiness feels like. As we dug into stories of our past, I caught myself staring at Michael, remembering the day we collided over that misplaced history book in the college library. Who knew such a clumsy meet-cute would lead us here? To 5 years filled with love, laughter, and the occasional burnt toast, I toasted, our friends cheering in agreement. The festivities of our anniversary extended into the next day when I surprised Michael with tickets to his favorite basketball team's game. Decked out in matching jerseys, we were those fans, the loud ones you secretly want to join because they're having the time of their lives. That night, we were invincible, basking in the glow of youth and shared dreams. Our lives, woven together by such moments, felt deeply rooted in love and partnership. Sunday mornings were our sacred ritual, a time for quiet connection amid the chaos of daily life. As we danced around the kitchen, flipping pancakes and planning future adventures, I felt a surge of contentment. How about Italy again, I suggested, lost in thoughts of wandering ancient streets hand in hand. Our bond seemed unbreakable, especially as I bragged about Michael's latest promotion during a dinner party. Our friends' faces lit up with genuine happiness for us, their toasts echoing promises of eternal support. I watched Michael, his face alight with pride and success, and my heart swelled. We were a team, in it for the long haul. Those feelings of nostalgia and love deepened one evening as we sifted through old photo albums, reliving our honeymoon in Italy. Each candid shot, each shared laugh, felt like a reaffirmation of our commitment, a reminder of how far we'd come in the future we envisioned together. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs, doesn't it? Enter Alex, the new guy at work, with his fresh ideas and undeniable charm. I wasn't looking for anything, honestly, I wasn't. But there was something about him, something that caught me off guard during that project kickoff meeting. It was the way he thought, the way he spoke, it sparked something in me, a curiosity I hadn't felt in years. Working late became our new normal, Alex and I lost in a world of marketing strategies and endless takeout. The office would grow silent, and it would just be the two of us, sharing stories from our lives outside those four walls. I told myself it was all professional, that the thrill I felt was just the excitement of a new project. But deep down, I knew. I knew I was treading dangerous waters, blurring lines I had never even thought to approach before. And as I lay awake at night, Michael's steady breathing beside me, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on the precipice of something that could very well shatter the beautiful, ordinary life we had built together. The moment I step through our front door, the shift is palpable. The cozy, lived-in feel of our home now feels like a stage for a play I'm no longer sure I belong in. Michael's on the couch, lost in a book, the kind of quiet evening we used to cherish. But the air between us is charged, heavy with the things unsaid, the secrets I'm carrying like stones in my pockets. Hey. I start, voice too bright, too forced. How was your day? He looks up, and there's a flicker of something, suspicion? Sadness? Before he masks it with a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. Fine. You're home late again. The words hang there, a gentle accusation, a probing question. I mumble something about work, about deadlines and demands, but even to my ears, it sounds hollow, rehearsed. It wasn't work that kept me late. It was Alex, his laughter echoing in my car as we sat parked outside the bar, the world narrowing to the space between us until it felt inevitable, us, tangled in a moment we couldn't take back. I came home with his kiss burning on my lips, a guilty thrill coursing through me, trying to convince myself it was just a one-time mistake. But one mistake turned into many, each lie piling on top of the last until I could barely see the truth myself. I told Michael the first was working late, attending events that didn't exist, all while my heart raced for stolen moments with Alex. It was exhilarating, intoxicating, and with every secret meeting, I felt myself slipping further away from the woman I used to be, the woman Michael loved. Michael's suspicion grew, an undercurrent in every conversation, every question about my day feeling like a probe for the truth. Sarah, is everything okay? You seem distant, he'd ask, and I'd deflect, accuse him of not trusting me, anything to keep the facade from crumbling. Even Jenna, my confidant, could see the change in me. What's going on with you? She pressed one night, her concern slicing through my defenses. I broke, confessing about Alex, about the affair that had tangled itself around me. She listened, silent and shocked, then promised to keep my secret, her disappointment a shadow in her eyes. I thought I could manage it, balance the thrill of Alex with the stability of my life with Michael. But when Michael found the messages on my phone, the fragile balance shattered. He didn't confront me, didn't explode in anger or demand answers. Instead, he took screenshots, a silent witness to my betrayal, and retreated behind a wall I couldn't breach. Desperate to fix the unfixable, I planned a weekend getaway for Michael and me, a chance to rekindle what I'd so carelessly jeopardized. Yet even as we tried to reconnect, Alex haunted my thoughts, a reminder of the passion and excitement I was now missing. The trip was supposed to be a new beginning, but instead, it felt like the end, each forced smile and strained conversation a note in the elegy of our marriage. The lies, the affair, the secrets, they had all led to this, a chasm between Michael and me that no weekend getaway could bridge. I was caught in the web of my own making, and as I lay beside Michael, listening to the quiet rhythm of his breathing, I realized the cost of my choices. I had risked everything for a fleeting moment of passion, and now, I was left to face the consequences, alone in the darkness, with the ruins of my life around me. The moment Michael slid those screenshots across the kitchen table, my world stopped spinning. The images, stark against the glow of his phone, were irrefutable evidence of my betrayal. My first instinct was to deny, to throw up walls of deflection, but the hurt in Michael's eyes shattered them all. Sarah, how could you? His voice was a mix of anger, pain, and disbelief. I tried to find words, any words, that could explain the chaos I had invited into our lives. I was lost. I stammered, my voice breaking under the weight of my guilt. I thought I needed something different. I'm so sorry, Michael. But sorry was just a word, too small and too late to cover the cracks I'd caused. Our home, once a sanctuary of love and laughter, became a battleground. Michael's hurt poured out in accusations, and I, in turn, tried to justify my actions by blaming our fading connection, our lost excitement. It was a vicious cycle, each word widening the gap between us. Determined to salvage the wreckage of our marriage, I ended things with Alex. The call was brief, his anger palpable even through the phone. "You'll regret this," he spat out, a threat that sent chills down my spine. But at that moment, my only thought was saving my marriage, no matter the cost. We sought refuge in couples counseling, a last-ditch effort to mend what seemed irreparably broken. Each session peeled back layers of pain and resentment, leaving us raw and exposed. Progress was slow, and tears were frequent. Our counselor, a gentle woman with eyes that had seen too much, guided us through the turmoil, but some wounds were too deep for words to heal. But Alex wasn't done with me. The first threat came as a note, slipped under my windshield wiper, a sinister reminder of the chaos I'd caused. Then came the emails, each one more menacing than the last. Fear took hold, a constant shadow that followed me. I kept it from Michael, foolishly believing I could protect him from further pain. The strain began to show in every aspect of my life. At work, my focus waned and my projects suffered. My manager, a kind but no-nonsense woman, called me into her office. "Sarah, what's going on?" she asked, concern laced with frustration. The floodgates opened, and I found myself confiding in her, omitting the darker details but sharing enough to explain my distress. She listened, offering a shoulder and advice, but reminded me, "You need to keep it together here, at least." Home became a place I dreaded, each day a test of how long we could dance around the elephant in the room. Michael, sensing my withdrawal, grew more distant, his mind likely conjuring images of me returning to Alex. The irony was bitter. Alex was the last person I wanted to see, yet his shadow loomed over us, a dark reminder of the price of my choices. In the silence of our fractured home, I battled my demons alone, too ashamed to burden Michael further, too scared to face the consequences of my actions. The once simple act of coming home now felt like stepping into a minefield, each day ending with the relief that we'd survived another round in the silent war we were waging against each other. The moment I step into the dimly lit pub, the weight of my world presses down, a constant reminder of the mess I've made. Michael's been coming here more often, seeking refuge in the amber glow of the bar lights, finding solace in conversations with Carol, the bartender. He doesn't know I'm aware of his newfound sanctuary, or that I understand his need for escape. Each evening he spends away chips at my heart, a stark reminder of the distance between us. Driven by desperation and the dwindling threads of hope for our marriage, I confront Alex. It's a reckless move, fueled by the naive belief that I can somehow intimidate him into silence. The confrontation is explosive, his anger a tangible force that leaves me shaken. "You'll regret this," he hisses, his words slicing through the last of my resolve. I flee, the threat echoing in my ears, a harbinger of the storm to come. The storm hits one evening when I come home to find our lives splattered across the walls of our home, photos torn, furniture defaced, a clear message from Alex. My heart races, fear and anger clashing with a fierce protective instinct. This was no longer about me, it was about us, our safety. With trembling hands, I dial Michael's number, the words spilling out in a frantic rush. "Michael, our house, it's Alex. He's done something terrible." The revelation becomes a turning point. Despite the chasm of hurt and betrayal between us, Michael's instinct to protect our home, to protect me, bridges the gap. Together, we report the vandalism to the police, a united front against the chaos Alex has unleashed. When the police take Alex away, there's a fleeting sense of victory, but it's hollow, overshadowed by the reality of what's been lost. The decision to sell our house, the place where we built our life together, is a mutual one, yet it's fraught with tension. Each conversation about the future is a minefield, our differing visions a testament to the depth of the rift between us. The process is a constant negotiation, a delicate balance between holding on and letting go. Michael starts therapy, a solitary journey through the quagmire of his emotions. The space between us grows, filled with unsaid words and unshed tears. I watch him struggle, wrestling with the shadows of betrayal, and my heart aches with the knowledge that I am the cause. In a bid to reclaim some semblance of control over my life, I resign from the marketing firm, severing ties with the place that brought Alex into our lives. Freelancing from home offers a bittersweet freedom, a chance to start anew even as the foundations of my world remain fractured. Each day is a struggle, a balancing act between hope and despair. Our efforts to rebuild, to find some common ground in the ruins of our marriage, are fraught with setbacks. Yet, in these moments of vulnerability, we glimpse what might still be possible, a future, not as it was, but as it could be, forged from the lessons of our darkest days. The day we decided to adopt a dog from the local shelter was one of those rare, shimmering moments of hope amid the storm. Maybe this is what we need, I thought, watching as the scrappy little terrier mix we named Buddy bounded towards us, his tail wagging like a little flag of peace. Michael's laugh, genuine and warm, filled the space between us for the first time in months, and I dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. But happiness, it seems, is a slippery thing. The cracks beneath the surface, long hidden by our efforts to plaster over them with shared moments and new responsibilities, soon began to show. Arguments sparked over the smallest of things, the way dishes were loaded into the dishwasher, whose turn it was to walk Buddy. Each spat was a reminder of the deeper, unresolved pain and mistrust that lay between us, and with every harsh word, we drifted further apart. Then came the bombshell. Michael found out about the money I'd lent to Alex. Money that was meant for us, for our dreams of traveling the world together. The look on Michael's face as he confronted me was a mix of disbelief and anger, a mirror of the shame and regret I felt. "How could you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, but each word cut deep. I had no answers, only the crushing realization of the additional betrayal my actions represented. Feeling more alone than ever, I reached out to my family, seeking a lifeline in the turbulent sea of my own making. But the support I sought was not there. My choices had alienated even those who loved me unconditionally. The disappointment in my parents' voices was palpable, a reflection of my own self-reproach. "We just don't understand why, Sarah," they said, and in their inability to comprehend my actions, I found myself sinking deeper into isolation. In a desperate attempt to bridge the widening gap between us, Michael and I planned a trip to Italy, to the very place where we had honeymooned. I clung to the hope that the magic of those ancient streets could rekindle the love we once shared. Yet, instead of romance and reconciliation, we found ourselves caught in the same cycle of arguments and recriminations, the beautiful Italian backdrop a stark contrast to the tension between us. Returning home to find our house sold was a jolt back to reality. The move to a small, temporary apartment felt like a physical manifestation of our failed attempts to salvage our marriage, a smaller space, a smaller life than the one we had dreamed of together. The walls of that apartment seemed to close in on us, each day a reminder of the distance that had grown between us. Michael's withdrawal was palpable, his presence in the apartment increasingly rare as he sought refuge and work and, I suspected, in the company of Carol, the bartender who had become a friend. The knowledge of his growing connection with another was a bitter pill, yet part of me understood his need to find comfort somewhere, anywhere, in the midst of our shared despair. Caught in this limbo, I found myself questioning everything. The love that had once seemed unbreakable now felt like a distant memory, and as I watched Michael retreat further from me, I couldn't help but wonder if the words fell between us, heavy and final. Maybe we should consider a separation. Saying it out loud, the idea I'd been turning over in my mind for weeks, felt like crossing an invisible line. Michael's reaction was resigned, a nod that carried the weight of all our unsaid, unresolved issues. Maybe you're right, he agreed, and just like that, the decision was made, the final acknowledgement of the chasm that had grown too wide to bridge. In the days that followed, I threw myself into my freelance work and therapy sessions with a fervor born of desperation and guilt. Volunteering at the local community center, I sought solace in the act of helping others, a way to fill the void left by the crumbling of my marriage. Each small task, each moment of connection, was a step towards rebuilding the person I had lost along the way. Michael found his own path to healing, or so I heard through grapevine of mutual friends. His friendship with Carol had blossomed into something more, a relationship that seemed to offer him the comfort and understanding he no longer found with me. The knowledge stung, a bitter reminder of what we had lost, yet part of me was relieved to know he was finding happiness again. Our interactions dwindled, reduced to the necessary exchanges of two people entangling their lives from each other. Phone calls and texts became about logistics, the practicalities of separating assets and finalizing our divorce. The warmth that had once defined our relationship was gone, replaced by a cold efficiency that made my heart ache. Loneliness crept in during the quiet moments, a shadow that lingered despite my busy schedule. In a moment of weakness, I reached out to Jenna, hoping to bridge the gap that my actions had caused. Her response was kind but distant, a clear indication that the fallout from my decisions extended beyond the confines of my marriage. The day Michael told me he was seeing Carol, something inside me shifted. It wasn't surprise or even jealousy, but a deep, profound sadness for all that could have been. He spoke of her with a warmth and ease that had been missing from our conversations for too long, and I knew then that our paths had irrevocably diverged. Signing the divorce papers was an act devoid of ceremony, a stark contrast to the day we had vowed to spend our lives together. There were no tears, no dramatic goodbyes, just the quiet scratching of pens on paper and the heavy feeling of finality. Moving into my new apartment was a step into the unknown, a small, one-bedroom space that felt both liberating and daunting. Surrounded by boxes of my past life, I realized the enormity of the task ahead. Forgiving myself, moving on, building something new from the ruins of my old life, it all seemed overwhelming. Yet, as I unpacked each box, setting up my new space, a sense of determination took root. This was my chance to start over, to learn from my mistakes, and to build a life that was authentically mine, no matter how daunting the prospect might seem. The news hit me like a tidal wave, crashing over the fragile peace I'd built around myself. Michael and Carol, official. My heart pounded with a mix of emotions as I scrolled through the social media announcement, the smiling faces on my screen a stark reminder of the life I had once been a part of. Despite the pain, a part of me felt relieved. Michael had found the stability and peace that had eluded us for so long. In the midst of navigating my new reality, I found solace in unexpected places. Volunteering had introduced me to a group of women whose stories mirrored my own tales of love lost and found, of betrayal and healing. Their strength and resilience became a beacon of hope, illuminating the path forward. With each shared experience, I felt a little less alone, a little more understood. Then came the news of Michael's proposal to Carol. The simplicity of their love, so different from the complexities of what Michael and I had shared, was both beautiful and heart-wrenching. Hearing about it from a mutual friend felt like reopening a wound, yet it also brought a strange sense of closure. It was a testament to the changes we had both undergone, a sign that life, with all its twists and turns, was moving forward. In the aftermath, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had led me here. The realization of my role in the dissolution of our marriage was a bitter pill to swallow, but it was also a necessary step towards forgiveness, forgiveness of Michael, of myself, of the circumstances that had torn us apart. It was this introspection that inspired me to start a blog, a space to share my story and connect with others navigating the murky waters of loss and recovery. To my surprise, it resonated, drawing in a small but engaged audience who found solace in my words, just as I had found solace in the stories of others. Michael and Carol's wedding day arrived, a quiet affair filled with genuine happiness and love. I wasn't there, of course, but the news reached me through the grapevine of friends still bridging the gap between our separate lives. I imagined the ceremony, intimate and heartfelt, a celebration of new beginnings. And in that moment, I genuinely wished them both all the happiness